So we have with us Mr. Abhinay, founder and director at Ramesh Productions. Thank you so much, Abhinay, for joining us today.
Pleasure is mine.
So Abhinay, what inspired you to get into ad filmmaking? And if you can share a pivotal moment in your career, where like a turning point for you.
So first question to answer that what inspired me to get into advertising. So idea was I was studying architecture, and during that time I was more outside the class than inside most of the times. So I used to do all extracurricular activities and plays and everything. So I was very interested in joining the industry which can tell stories. Okay, which was the film industry, stage, advertising. There was few options, very few options I had. But that time was such that in the late 80s is when I was doing architecture. We as a country had very few professions which were respected. Okay, there was engineering, there was a doctor, there was architecture, then there was law, chartered accountant. Okay, so my parents had told me basically at that point that listen, you better get a degree first. Okay, so even if you want to get into filmmaking or storytelling, as you say, it's a very vague profession that you're talking about, and it's a very volatile profession. So you better get some degree first. So I was doing architecture. While doing architecture, as I was finishing it, in my fifth year, I said, yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to stick to architecture, I'm going to move into something else. And I want to, now that I've got the degree that my parents wanted me to get, I actually thought that I want to give it a shot. Because life is not going much, I didn't try.
Right.
So I followed my passion and I said, let me go into storytelling. Now the question was, what type of storytelling? The storytelling at that point, so you can imagine I was talking about I passed out in 1992 from architecture. So 92, we were making very weird films. The film industry were making very, very, very weird films. So the time and period of Hrishikesh Mukherjee and and Bimal Roy and Satyajit Ray was kind of done, and we were in this very strange phase of Indian industry was trying to make commercial cinema. So it was very uninspiring cinema. But what was inspiring at that time, because we had just hit in '92, India had hit globalization, and with globalization came in brands, and with brands came in the importance of advertising. So advertising, when I saw the advertising, ad films, I was like, wow, these look so much better. There's so much thought put into it, there is so much detail put into it. So that became my inspiration to go towards advertising and start telling. Sorry?
That was in 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that time 60 seconds was also there. Nowadays, 1 minute ads are almost impossible to make. But in those days, I was very enamored by the attention to detail that advertising had, and the film just looked so beautiful, so good. So that inspired me to move into advertising.
So, Abhinay, tell us a bit about your Google Pixels campaign.
All right. So that Google Pixel actually started very interestingly. That I got a call from a friend of mine from an advertising agency, and he said, listen, we have a very unique campaign. I said, okay. And I said, what is it for? And these days I'm doing all the formats, which is I am doing OTT platform, long formats, I'm doing films, feature films, and doing advertising as well. So I have not done an ad film for a while because I was doing 2 very long format, big projects. So when I got that call, I was, I said, okay, that's not bad. Let's, I've been doing long format for a while, so let me do an ad after a while. It was after a while. So he called me and he said, it's for Google. And I said, wow, that's great. Because that's a brand that I love and respect. So that'll be nice. And then he said, and its unique feature is it's going to be throwback at Mr. India. And I was like, whoa, that now is the most interesting part. And of course, that brings me in collaboration again after 24 with one of my favorite actors who I love to work with, which is Anil Kapoor sir. And when Anil sir is there in the campaign, then it was a no-brainer. Mr. India, Anil Kapoor, Google. Whichever order you want to decide that in, it's a fantastic combination. So that's how I embarked upon the Google campaign.
So, what was the challenge? What was the most challenging part of the, while executing the campaign?
Actually, funnily enough, the most challenging part was to be honest to Mr. India. See, what Shekhar Kapoor and Anil Kapoor had together achieved 37 years back was a campaign, sorry, not a campaign, they achieved a feature film which resonated with all the age groups in our country. Mr. India was one of the most liked films, one of the most remembered films, a film in which some of the most iconic scenes, iconic songs, and iconic characters exist. And while we were doing that, it is still 36 years back that they released it. So to make it relevant today, to be honest with it and not spoil the heart of Mr. India, but make it relevant 36 years later to today's audience. So imagine, as a kid, if you have watched Mr. India 36 years back, today you are into your 50s. So obviously, when I'm selling a Google Pixel phone, today I'm selling it to them as well as the younger generation. But the younger generation is actually not seeing Mr. India as much. They've seen it, of course, on movies and platforms and all that. They've seen it. But, so how do you make it relevant today? How do you make it exciting? And how do you keep the sanctity of the original piece of work that Shekhar Kapoor sir and Anil Kapoor sir had created? That was, and at the same time, bring in a brand as iconic as Google, as a member of it. So I think these were the incredible challenges that we faced while we were working on this campaign to start.
Okay. So how long did it take?
I think about a month and a half to ideate, come up with the right 2 months approximately. Because any campaign in advertising, anything more than 2 months is criminal, to waste of time. So, and the script was already there by the agency. We worked with, between me, the agency creative director then, and the client closely with Anil Kapoor sir. Because the combination of all four is what actually made it work. And that period was approximately 2 months by the time we ideated, executed, and delivered.
So, what was the brief given to you? Or maybe a one-liner or two-liner brief that was given to you?
The brief for this film was because the product was such that the Google Pixel, the new phone that came out in the market, can do so many things which are AI based, which are advanced in technology, which are very interesting in terms of what it can do. They told me that, okay, so the only other thing that we can relate it is that crazy machine that Mr. India had on his hand, which would make him a superhero.
Yeah.
So it's almost like metaphorically trying to say that the analogy was that whoever has the Google Pixel is going to actually be as good as Mr. India, as good as superhero, because he can make people vanish out of a photograph. There were so many features in it. So the only brief given to us was that do justice to the phone as much as you can do justice to Mr. India, and make it relevant for the youth of it.
I think that was the best part of it,
Yeah, I guess.
The brand messaging was conveyed very, very well.
Absolutely. I think the idea was that finally when we get the proof of the pudding by the audience, where it's a successful campaign, that's when you know that you actually did justice to everything.
Yeah, you know, sometimes we see ads that are, this is a great idea, but somewhere the brand messaging is.
Sometimes the brand messaging gets weak. Sometimes the creative idea gets diluted. This but we really worked.
Perfect, I think, in that way.
Well, thank you for saying that, but I think from our perspective, we tried our best to make sure that we can do this tightrope walk as as balanced as possible.
So the campaign garnered quite attention. So what do you believe contributed to its success?
See, for any advertising campaign to work, I feel that the first thing that has to, which we attribute its success to, is the product itself. Because if the product doesn't deliver, no advertising can see it.
Right.
So we can do the world's best advertising, but if the product does not stand up to the standards of what you're actually selling, you will never be able to sustain or never be able to be successful. So first, the product. Second, I feel, is this evergreen man called Anjana, who is relevant and is one of the few people in this industry who is relevant to an 8-year-old to an 80-year-old. How many people can boast of that? So I think one of the very, very high contributing factor to the success of this campaign is Anil Kapoor himself. Of course, in the form of Mr. India. That added, the extra sweetness to the deal. And of course, third, I would say, is that the creative team who cracked this incredible idea of bringing Mr. India world and the Google Pixels world and combining it together 36 years later after Mr. India had come out. So I would say that, all these three elements, I would say that the fourth contribution could be mine, which would be to try and make sure that this campaign, I don't mess it up.
Right.
Because there are such great elements involved. A fabulous brand of product, a fabulous brand called Anil Kapoor, and a fabulous script, and Mr. India. I just had to make sure that I did the right balancing act.
I think you guys were lucky because it was Mr. India, Mr. Anil Kapoor. He's not aging.
That's what I'm saying. He's evergreen. He's like the youngest senior actor that we have.
He's actually started a superpower.
Absolutely, it is. For him, it is 100% a superpower.
So what do you feel about creative freedom? Do you get it more often?
I am scary about creative freedom. Creative freedom cannot be given. I think creative freedom has to be, one, it has to be literally taken. Creative freedom has to be earned. Because what is creative freedom? Who is ever going to come to you and say that, make what you want to make, I will support you? ऐसा तो दुनिया में कोई बना नहीं. Okay, in today's day and time, probably Christopher Nolan is the only great director who manages to say that I want to do this, now you all support this vision. I don't think there are very few people in this world who can actually manage to pull that off. We have not yet reached that stage. But the idea is creative freedom is something which differs with the way society changes, with the way the audience changes, with the way the economic reforms change, with the way education changes, with the way perspectives, politics, socio-economic growth, everything affects your creative freedom. Why? Is because depending upon how those things are changing, your version of creative freedom or creative expression has to change. And to that, I would say that nobody in this world is going to come and hand you creative freedom. You will have to go and try it. You will have to go and exercise it. You will have to go and work hard for that creative freedom. And the day, if you find a place which creative freedom बांट रहा है, मुझे बताओ, मैं पहले जाके ज्वाइन करूँगा.
with the advertising industry constantly evolving, what do you believe are the key challenges and opportunities, that directors and production houses like yours, Ramesh Production, face in staying relevant and, innovative in today's time?
Which is a very true thing that, today, probably out of, you can take out of hundreds of years, I suppose, that this period that we are in has seen the maximum amount of change. In the earlier times, changes used to come after a few centuries. Right now, changes are coming every year. So to stay relevant becomes the most important thing, and how you do it is, in my opinion, of course, there are different people who exercise different things, but in my opinion, the way you stay relevant is by staying in touch with what the changes are. Number one, understanding the effect of all these changes on people, because they are the ones, they are your audience. And third is keeping a mind which is open enough to accept these changes, not fight them. Because the changes will happen, you like it or not. That's the era that we are living in. The change is inevitable. The question is, how do you cope with it? And if you keep yourself open, change with that, and change with the, keep your awareness on for the effect of the change on the people, including yourself, is what's going to help you stay in relevance, to the happening changes in the world. And of course, technology is changing by the minute. Okay, education is changing. And when I say education, it's not school and college. I'm talking about how educated our audience is about what is happening and the changes that are happening. Today, internet has opened every possible crevice and window and door into the remotest part of the country or the world. You can sit in your house and know exactly what's happening there. Who reacted what? Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all these social medias are actually getting you directly in touch with people that you only saw in magazines once upon a time. So because of doing that, you're crunching. Okay, you're making the entire world into a really small package. Now in that tight package, there is so much happening that you have to be able to have the appetite to kind of handle that change, handle that pocket rocket that is brewing in today's day and time. So you have to be very, very strong, very aware, very sharp, and extremely inviting of this change. If you're not, then you perish.
So nowadays you also see there are people who make movies, films on their phone also.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The attention span has gone down.
Yeah.
What do you think about these? Do you think you have to be more competitive now?
See, there is no option. Competition is amazing, and amazing part is that today I am not competing just with my colleagues or my counterparts. Today I am competing with anybody who has a camera in their hand.
Right.
And a camera today is compressed into something as small as a pen, into a phone, into a, and the costs of those cameras have become too cheap.
Right.
Today I, as a filmmaker, am competing, as a storyteller, I'm competing with any person who has a voice. Because he has a voice, he has a means to project that voice, whether it's in visual form or audio form or any form. Now, the world, as I said earlier, that the world has become such an incredibly shrunk kind of a form that today you have a kid of 10 years old 8 years old, who picks up a phone, who makes a film, who uploads it, all by himself. And it's actually right there, pitted against somebody else who has spent months and years working on something and telling a story. And mind you, the kid's film can actually reach you if it's great an idea, if it's decently executed. Because today, the audience is hungry for such stuff, hungry in the sense of saying that, okay, I am open. I'm not saying that only this guy can make a film, I'm saying that everybody can make a film today. So yes, it's a very, very competitive field. Yes, it's one of the most challenging times, but it's also one of the most exciting times because you have, when an 8-year-old also can express his voice through a camera or through a voice recorder or through a blog or through a podcast or through anything, any format. So many formats available to you. Wow, isn't that the time that we were waiting for? So I think it's here. You know, we have to just make the most of it. A lot of people look at it very pessimistically. But I think it's not to be looked at pessimistically. I think it needs to be looked at so optimistically to say that, guys, this is the time. And yes, it is competitive, so let's fight it.
What the world would be without challenges?
Absolutely, I agree with you.
So we also spoke about technological advancements. We see a lot of new emerging tech coming up.
Yeah.
That has already come up actually.
Yeah.
We have ChatGPT, we have generated AI, you can generate a lot of new stuff. You can create a video, you can create music. Then there's AR, VR. Last year there was a euphoria around metaverse. So what do you think about these new tech? How do you see them shaping the advertising industry or filmmaking in general?
See, there are two sides of the coin. Every coin has two sides. The fact is that all these advancements are happening so rapidly that there are, unfortunately, some very adverse effects of these so-called advances as well. And there are some incredible applications to these advances. So what do you do? Okay, it's unfortunately it is going to be like this for the next few years because let's say a product which comes out which is AI based or which is which actually makes storytelling so strong and so easy and so liberating for some people. It's also what it's doing is that it has some very, very dangerous usages of that particular application, which is in the crime world. Now, what do? This is the time when storytellers or visual storytellers, audio storytellers, whoever wants to tell a story, should utilize this, but should do it very responsibly. Because the minute like the olden times, there was a certain structure, there was a certain protocol to filmmaking, right? And each of these protocols actually needed time, effort, and manner to go in. Today, all those protocols are broken, right? Today, I can type and say, okay, I want a 90-page script on this subject. And in 30 seconds, maybe less, the script is in front of you of the desired pages that you want. What does that do to you? What does it do to me? It does, for me, it's wow. I can crunch time. Yeah. I don't have to, wait till I finish writing and this and that. But for a whole lot of other people, it means that you don't think. So my only request is, luckily I am from a generation where nothing of this existed. Again, luckily I am today in the generation where I can see these things unfold. But for the younger generation, who's actually going to be using this as a norm, who never know what that longer formats were, or that mehnat was, or that effort was, for them I would like to say that responsible usage of these applications is the only way forward for you. Otherwise, at one point it's going to come when you're going to stop thinking. because the computer will do the thinking for you. And that's something that you shouldn't allow yourself to do. You should be able to use these, okay, not get used by these.
Absolutely. So have you used ChatGPT or generative AI in your family?
Yeah, I have. I've started using, and there are some applications which are so good that they actually help us in storyboarding. They help us in expediting the process of how you make presentations. It's become earlier. I remember it would take 3 days for us to. I would brief a storyboard artist. If I can't sketch myself, then I have to brief. He shot it yoga. This is how it will go. This is how it will play. Then he would creatively make it. Then I would say no, not like this. Then he would change it. It was all hand done. Right. Today, the 3 days has crunched down to 3 hours or lesser if you are good at it. Because all you do is you put in all your keywords and the entire thing flies in front of us. So I am certainly using it. But the one rule that I have about using any of these applications is that I will not let that application think on my behalf. The thought has to be mine. Right. The idea has to be mine. I am going to just use this application to expedite the process of execution.
Absolutely. So, Abhinay, whose work in the industry do you love the most?
In advertising?
In advertising industry.
There are so many. I'll tell you, I have grown watching some of the most incredible filmmakers in action. First, I would say, person one. Okay, one of my absolute favorite filmmakers. I had the good fortune of working with Piyush sir, he was I consider him my guru mentor in advertising. And then I joined Highlight, which was the company where Prasoon was the director as well. I absolutely admired Mahesh Mathai, who started Highlight along with Srila Chatterjee. And I loved them because they were probably one of the best producers that we ever had in advertising. After that, there is Prakash Verma. Again, a good friend of mine, very dear friend of mine, and somebody whose work I respect. His wife Sneha, whose producing capabilities, as much as her storytelling capabilities, are absolutely excellent. From the generation prior to that, I would say that I had this incredible fascination for Prahlad Kakkar. Okay, because he was the craziest filmmaker that I always admired, because he was like so prolific in his work, he was so flamboyant in his work, and at the same time he used to make advertising so funny, So these are, of course, some of the gurus of Shumantru Ghoshal, another senior of mine, who I actually admired and I continue to admire, and who also has entered the long format, is Ram Advani. Again, somebody I respect tremendously, somebody I love for the person he is, as much as the filmmaker he is Ram. There are so many names that come to mind. In the recent times, there is Amit Sharma, who's great. There is I don't know how many of you know that Gajraj Rao, who's a very big actor today, is an absolutely incredible filmmaker, advertising. Then, Milind Daimade being one who made his journey from creative director to director in advertising to today making films. I don't know. I hope I'm not missing out any friend's name who tomorrow's going to meet me up for it. But fantastic filmmakers.
If you can share one campaign, that left a lasting impression on you.
Lasting impression. Okay. There are a few. Of course, some of them are international campaigns. But I'll tell you the one campaign, 2 or 3, I'll tell you, because it's unfair to name one. And I'll tell you why it's unfair. It's because there were some campaigns that I looked at and that changed the way my advertising journey uh, went after that point. Those are the campaigns I did. The first campaign that I would like to name is Hamara Bajaj. Okay, which was, the song was iconic. It was a campaign that I saw and I said, oh my God. Yeah, it's like, even today, you run that campaign today, it still make complete sense. Okay? Incredible campaign. One of the finest. It made me aware of a brand in relation with its audience. Because it was a perfect combination of both those factors in there. This was when I entered advertising. After I came in, the entire spate of telecom films that Piyush Pandey held, and many of them, most of them have been made by Prasuna. Incredible. Creativity at its best, risk-taking at its best, brand building at its best. I think very few campaigns come close to that in terms of when you see some outstanding work. Another film that made me think about what and how timing and humor is all about is Prasoon's campaign of Ericsson, where he says 1 black coffee please. Okay, there's a lady who's sitting in a restaurant and there's a guy who's sitting a little away, and she has her hand on her cheek like this, and she says, I really would like to spend time with you. And she's looking in a particular direction. There is a man sitting on the close by table who thinks that she's talking to him. And he gets up because of the woman's advances towards him and wants to come and join her. And he's wearing a nice suit and all that. And the minute he comes, she takes a small Ericsson phone. And this is the time when mobile phones just arrived. And that is the time when a small Ericsson phone comes out of the hand. And she points the phone at him and says, 1 black coffee please. And thinking and actually crushing the hopes of this one man that a beautiful woman actually made it. It was one of the most incredible campaigns. Why? It did incredible justice to a phone when there used to be big phones coming at that time. Ericsson was the smallest one, which would fit into the palm. Okay. Second, performance of another level between Kavita Thakur, if I'm not wrong, was her name, and another gentleman who's a part of a very, very fine actor. That was, plus just perfect timing by Krishna Pandey in his way he delivered that film. So all in all, I think these are some of the campaigns, Mile So Mera Tumhara, which was something that made me understand the marriage of, what a corporate film or an advertising film or a film which encompasses our country, encompasses music in such a beautiful way. I think these are some of the campaigns which just blew my head completely. So, and of course there are some, in the recent past, Verma has done some, my God, spectacular campaigns. The Vodafone campaign with the dog, the entire campaign that done by Verma. One of my favorites of Verma's is this Vodafone, what those characters were called? Zuzus. The Zuzus campaign done by Verma. Fantabulous campaign. So I think there are some filmmakers who end up going out there and creating history. And these are some of my, I was lucky to be shoulder to shoulder to many of these absolutely great filmmakers. So these are some of the campaigns that I changed the way I thought. That completely shaped my way of looking at advertising.
Really loved your Sardar campaign.
Oh, that was iconic. That was again, that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
So lastly, what advice would you like to give to all the aspiring filmmakers out there, who want to create a mark in the industry, or maybe follow similar paths like yours?
Okay, so I have to say that to all the people who want to, come in now. Okay, first I want to apologize to them, and the reason is because they are coming into this industry when actually it's one of the possibly the worst times. Whether it's COVID, whether it's digitalizing of the world, whether it's OTT platforms, whether it is whatever, social media, I don't know, or it's all put together, that they are coming in the most competitive times. They are coming in possibly the bleakest of times. Today, we are in a state of flux. A lot of changes are happening, and we are trying to desperately cope with those changes. So that coping is going to weigh heavy on them. Luckily for us, when we came in, it was the golden period of advertising. Today, I would say we are moving towards slightly the darker, side of the moon. But all hope is not lost. The only advice, I don't know whether I'm capable or worthy, they think that I can advise them, but all I can say is that at the core of it all, you're telling a story. At the core, you're selling a product. At the core, you're going to entertain. Don't forget that. Whether it's through digital, through movie making, advertising, whatever kind of advertising you do. The bottom line is that don't forget that you're telling stories, and who we are at the root is the most important thing. Don't forget who you are.
Absolutely.
Because the West does something, or because the rest of the world is doing something. Don't be a follower, be followed. Do work which will be followed. Because it's the easiest to follow. It's the most difficult to pave the path and make people follow. It is something that I would recommend to all the youngsters, all the people who are coming in now, that while it looks like, the most competitive times, slightly bleak times, creatively speaking, of course, please don't lose heart. Just stay focused on your roots, where you come from, and tell your story. Don't try to tell somebody else's story. Tell your story. Tell the story that you believe in, which comes, the voice that comes from your soul, is what you need to tell. And by the way, I have tried and tested it. It works. You can tell your own story from your soul in every ad film, even if you're selling sabun. You can still be a part of it. Davikshan being one of the examples of that. That it's literally something that came out of, I think, not just mine, but many other childhoods. What that insight was. So be insightful. Have depth to your thought, to your storytelling. And you will never go wrong. Never. That's my promise.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay.